Hush. Hello and welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I'm going to be doing something different on this channel. I'm going to be review the Khasi film known as 14/8 or Khatsao Phra or 14th August as most of you would call it. So I had put out a poll on Instagram a couple of days ago asking whether or not you have watched this movie or not on Instagram, and I can see the majority of you haven't watched this movie, so please do go watch that movie first and then come and watch this video, because it's gonna be a spoiler and a non-spoiler kind of a thing, so please go watch it and then you can come back. Anyway, so let's start off with the synopsis of this movie. The synopsis says, Julie, a young innocent girl, gets kidnapped, drugged and molested by two reputed politicians. Will Julie speak against these powerful criminals? Will she be able to get justice? This movie is directed by director and producer Kenny Lingdo, and it stars the following people: Ellie, who was played by Eliezer Barre. There is Krao. I don't know the name of the actor who played Krao, so if you know his name, please write it down in the comments, because I was searching for his name everywhere and I couldn't find it. Then there is Mr. Pinchlur, who was played by Ban Kirshan, Julie, who was played by Aisiful, Kathy, who was played by Kathleen, Iba, who was played by Ibalawan Pinhun. There is Hilar and Nang as well in this movie. So there are a lot more people, but I couldn't find all the names, as I said. So let me start talking about the movie theater experience first. The movie theater experience, to be really honest with you, was not that great for me. I watched this movie in Biju Cinema Hall where it was being played, and the theater had broken seats. Although we took the seats in the balcony, but then the seats were like broken, and it was like moving, so we had a difficult time stretching our legs and sitting down, because the chair kept on moving every time we sat. Also, the screen was like really dark, so it was difficult at some parts to actually see what was going on the screen, because the screen was of very poor quality, and the subtitles were being cut off in some parts. I don't know if that was an editorial mistake, but for the most part, yeah, the subtitles were there, but at some parts, the subtitles were under the main screen, so it was difficult to sometimes understand what the person was saying. Now let me come into the acting bit of this movie. The acting, let's start off with Eliezer, who was played by my friend Eliezer Barre. Now I'm not saying this just because he is my friend, but also because I've seen him act on stage. He had performed with me a couple of days earlier, as you've seen if you watched my videos, that he had acted with me on stage, and he is one of the most grounded actors I've seen from Shillong. His acting looked really intense and believable for the most part, and the action sequences were really good. When it comes to Krao, even Krao was a really, really grounded actor. I don't know the name of the actor, but I'm just saying Krao because that's how I know him, right? So Krao's parts were really grounded as well. I loved the way, his appearance made the camera feel like it felt like the camera was demanding his attention. Yes, and also Mr. Pinchlur. Yes, Mr. Pinchlur also looked very believable. Mr. Ban Kirshan, I believe, who played Pinchlur. So yeah, even his scenes, his parts also looked quite believable as well. Iba, Kathy, everyone did a pretty good job. Everyone looked very invested in this movie when in the scenes that they were playing. Of course, if I have to be really nitpicky for some parts, then I will say that the dialogue delivery at some points looked, it cut me off at some points, but then for the most part, yes, the dialogue delivery was also really good. One thing I understood about this movie is that the budget was quite low, I believe, but the director did the best that he could with whatever he had, and hats off, and I really appreciate him for doing what he did. The drone shots, the framing of all the parts, the sunsets, the sunrise, the night shots, the drone shots, they were all really, really good. The color grading was on point. The intense sequences were where the colors looked really like cool and bluish, and it made me feel like it was really intense at that point. It was quite believable. The editing team did a really, really good job. The fight sequences, the sound effects were really good. I could actually believe that the actors were manhandling each other. The punches that were being thrown, the sound effects behind them, the way the punches were being thrown, everything looked believable. When one of the guys in the movie was being kidnapped, a cloth was being thrown on him. It actually seemed like he was actually being kidnapped. He was struggling with the kidnapper not to get kidnapped and thrown into the car. I also loved the makeup the makeup was on point. You could actually see Elieser's head had a cut and he was bleeding, you know, from here. At first you could see the blood just came out a little bit from here, and in the next parts you could see the blood was actually dripping down. So yeah, I love those little details that was, you know, looked after in this movie. I love the part when Iba went inside her own house and saw the splash of blood on the walls. The blood was drying, as you know, blood dries off after you leave it lying like that for some time. Yeah, I mean, these little details was really, you know, looked after, and I really like that part. Now if I talk about what I don't like about this movie is at some points the dialogue delivery seemed weak. The dialogue was actually good, but the way that the dialogue was being delivered was actually weak at some parts, where I felt like I mean, it could have been done better. Another point that I had a problem with in this movie would be the scene where Ellie was driving the car and the girl grabbed him from the neck, from the back seat, and he was struggling to get her hands off his neck, and the car was swaying, you know, from left to right on the road. I actually wanted to see the car crash. Of course, I can understand with the low budget and everything, it's quite difficult to show every little thing as such, but then the scene just cut off to a different scene again. These are the little things, I mean, if you ask my personal opinion, are the things that I don't like about this movie, but for the most part, I can understand that it's a regional film, and if you ask me what I like about this movie is how graphic this movie was, with the language, with the fight sequences, then everything. It was pretty graphic. The language, wow. I mean, I loved how the dialogue was written. The script was pretty good. Of course, there were some flaws in the script, but then I can understand that it's a regional film. Of course, with time, everybody will get better. There will be improvements made, and I believe that strongly. So if you ask my personal opinion on how much I would give this movie a star rating, I would say about a 6.5, and I think that's a pretty good rating for a movie that's a regional film, and with whatever efforts that were put into this movie, it's pretty believable for the most part. You know, for movies like this, you can't really be critical about them. You should actually, you know, try to get what the movie is trying to say, the message behind the movie. That's what I love about this movie, and the message was really strong. So if you haven't watched this movie and you're here already, I would strongly recommend please go and watch the movie now. So with that said, we have come to the end of this movie review. If you watched it this far, don't forget to hit the like button, click on subscribe, don't forget to hit the notification bell as well right next to the subscribe button, so that you get notified every time I upload a video. And please do share this video with your friends and family so I can reach 1000 subscribers as soon as possible. And if you want to watch more and more videos of this sort, write it down in the comments and I will read and reply to each and every single comment that's down there. With that said, stay safe and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Hush.